When someone mentions mobile video games, what's your first impression? Does it remind you of Fortnite and PUBG, or the Nokia Snake game? Or maybe you just tell them that they're not real gamers? Whatever your answer might be, this video is for you. I'm Untold, and today we're going to talk about the untold history of mobile gaming that consists of 5 golden eras. If you found this illuminating or helpful, subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. Thank you. Before we start at the first stage, I want to say that there's a chapter 0, which is basically games like Bounce and Snake and some other examples, mostly on Symbian OS. I'm not going to cover them because I think it just prolongs my video and bores you, the audience. But if we get past that weird era, we reach the gates of glory, where it all began. Chapter 1: Java games. Before Android and iOS would become a thing, most mobile devices used an inclusive operating system called Java. Java was one of the founding pillars of what we have today as smartphones. Back when mobiles had keypad, Java games employed the 4 directional keys as movement joystick and the 2 keys at each side as command buttons. Some of them would use the numpads as well. It was a fun and memorable era. Then came the touchscreen phones, and with them, everything changed. Well, almost everything. Although going through apps and scrolling was way easier, that was not the case for games. You see, touchscreens were so progressive that mobile gaming industry was falling behind. So for a while, Java games were the same as before, instead with a touchable directional interface that was added to the lower half of the screen. Then at some point, a genius realized that they can do horizontal games and do a better utilization of the screen. All Java games can be categorized into 3 groups: 2D side-scrollers, which dominated the industry by far, isometric puzzle or strategical games like Age of Empire or Football Manager, and the third group was racing games, which was a nightmare. Imagine holding the acceleration button at all times, steering the car with 2 directional buttons, and use other abilities like Nitros, all on a 3-inch screen. Besides the original titles, they would also adapt popular games of that time, such as Prince of Persia, Assassin's Creed, and Splinter Cell, which were all in side-scroller category. If you have never played those games, it doesn't matter what I say. You won't believe how good these games were. The Java era was tied with touch input control, and it was getting really boring. Besides, having user interface on the screen would ruin the game's experience. It would make everything ugly. A demand vacuum was emerged, thus the supply was provided. The arrival of Android and iOS smartphones was the dawn of a new generation of mobile games that I like to call full touch games. Full touch games were the wonder of the day and the most beloved even to this day. The developers only had one job: design a game that doesn't need a control input and, if possible, doesn't need HUD either. That's how games like Fruit Ninja, Cut the Rope, Where's My Water, and Angry Birds came to life. If you think about it, you realize that these games weren't built around the idea that we should feed lollipops to a frog or something like that. The devs had a sole mission: how can we create a game that fully engages touchscreen ability in its gameplay? Like, that was the only purpose of these games, because touchscreens were so big back then. Alongside these amazing experiences, another generation of games came about which didn't tap into the touchscreen ability that much, but used another new feature in smartphones. You see, that was the first time phone companies started filling their devices with motion and gesture sensors. Some geniuses harnessed that for their games, and a new category was formed. Tilt screen games introduced beloved titles like Temple Run and Doodle Jump. That steering mechanism also helped revolutionize racing games, and Asphalt franchise became a hit. Then again, you could still feel an emptiness in mobile gaming industry. 2D games were mostly outdated a decade earlier in PC and consoles. Why we still don't have enough good 3D games on our smartphones? And this was the beginning of arguably best era of gaming, Gameloft era. Gameloft first started its journey with Java games. They were the ones who would adapt iconic games and developed bangers like Brothers in Arms, Nova, and Miami Nights, unaware that their most glorious chapter is yet to come. When full touch games were emerged, Gameloft felt like they were ripped off. This was their playground. The irreplaceable kings of mobile games were replaced now, so they started working on 3D games with jaw-dropping graphics. They revolutionized the industry overnight. Then it was hit after hit: Asphalt, Batman, Hero of Sparta, and creme de la creme, Modern Combat. Oh my god, right at the time when Call of Duty was shining brightest, this series came on Android, and with each title, it kept getting better and better. Modern Combat 5 was the most unreal experience ever. Like, how can a tiny smartphone process and load something like that? The only problem was downloading the data. They had a small APK file that we would install, but that was the easy part. Then you should have opened the installed game with a super fast connection and wait for it to download its data. And the data was the most open source shit possible with a million files. If there was a minor disturbance in your network connection, it was over. The game wouldn't work and would recommend you to download all of its data again. This problem was finally solved by a compressed and archive format called OBB that is still used to this day. Mobile games kept copying and inspiring by PC games that after a while, it was a set path for them, and it was a guaranteed success too. After all, it was tested on other platforms of gaming, so whenever they fell short of ideas, just a quick pick at what big guys had done 5 years ago, and bingo, we got a new winner. You can start to see the pattern that is shaping, which eventually would destroy mobile games industry. Next up, online games. Clash of Clans was the first game to build the foundation of online games. Before that, it seemed financially unreasonable to develop mobile multiplayer games. They didn't think there was a market or demand for it. But Supercell changed everything. This was the beginning of a new generation of games such as Soccer Stars, Clash Royale, 8-Ball Pool, and so many more. The idea was simple. A game that you can 1v1 other people from all around the world and use the rewards you gain to empower yourself so you have a better chance at winning. Of course, it was designed in a way to create the illusion that you have a chance at this, while the actual way of reaching to the top was spending real money. The system of multiplayer was always 1v1 because those smartphones weren't powerful enough to handle a dozen players fighting off simultaneously. And of course, half of these games didn't even have that many active players to give you enough opponents. So they'd fill their games with perfect bots designed to imitate real gamers' behaviors such as stalling, missing shots, and being stupid. This resulted in a series of scandals which we're not gonna get into now. Although we all held Clash of Clans dearly in our hearts, we couldn't stop thinking, this isn't really an online game. We're not facing an actual online player. In fact, in order to raid someone's village, they have to be offline beforehand. So there we go again, another gap in the industry. Online games are not actual online games. We need to compete and fight other people in a more direct and tangible way. Find a demand, provide supply. Final act, Battle Royale games. It first started with PUBG, or was it Fortnite? This is the video game version of egg or chicken dilemma. Well, the numbers tell us that Fortnite was released 4 months earlier. But PUBG became way popular at first because it had a more serious and real design. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that these two games started the genre of Battle Royale games on smartphones. The idea was to throw 100 people on a shrinking island. The last man standing is the king. Seems straightforward, but it wasn't. It was the beginning of something beautiful. It introduced so many new gamers to the world. This was the perfect recipe to make billions of dollars. What made people love this was not its premise. It was the joy of teamwork and defeating the enemy with your friends, and how easy and simple this was. Soon, Activision got angry and thought, we were the founders of this genre. How dare these mobile games do better than what we did on consoles? And that was the birth of Call of Duty Mobile. Each company started to add different things to its game. For instance, PUBG introduced Team Deathmatch and lots of different zombie modes. Fortnite had the building ability that would make it unique and collab with different games to add different skins. But even the brightest day has an end, and thus comes the night. With the end of Battle Royale era, it's been a couple years of silence and emptiness. Sure, they were games like Among Us, but they were there for a moment and quickly faded away. Didn't get to have an era. Now everything's at halt. But what's the reason? Well, you've been looking at it this whole time. Don't you get it? It was because the devs got lazy and instead of coming up with their own ideas, like how they did with full touch games, they chose to just copy PC and console games. Creativity died, and with it, mobile games were doomed to reach the state of stall. Is there a way out of this? I believe so. They should sit and think about what would make a mobile game unique. What element separates a title from its similar rivals? Why a pixel art game can be as enjoying as its source of inspiration? What did Clash of Clans do to attract so many people to strategical gaming? How was it that PUBG and Fortnite beat the most successful franchise of the history in their own home? Every time we get an answer to one of these questions, we'll get another great game. Before we say goodbye, I want to point out that mobile games had a great impact on the evolution of emulators too. A long journey that started with Nintendo games till it reached the pinnacle that is PlayStation 2. But that story is for another time. So until then, if you enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share your opinion with us. Thank you and
be safe, friend. Don't you dare go hollow.